Good afternoon, dear viewers, and welcome to Tallinn's TalTech University Rector's Selection Debate. This is a decisive third one. Over these past weeks, we have had the opportunity on two occasions via this video stream to see these debates. On the first two occasions, we answered questions from students. Then a week later, at the second debate, the university family had their turn to ask questions, mostly about structure. And there have been other meetings. And today we have the third debate, where you will also have the occasion to ask your questions. So you can send all your questions to rectorivalimised@taltech.ee. And they will go through the moderator and get to me. They will also be displayed on the screen, and the rector candidates will see them and have the opportunity to answer. Over today's broadcast, we have also some partners standing by with their questions, and three journalists, Neeme Korv from Äripäev, Priit Hõbemägi from Eesti Ekspress, and Martin Ehala from Postimees will have a turn to ask their questions. But for those who are not up to date on the most recent news, who are the candidates? You might be thinking that on the 20th of May will be candidates for rector. The candidates are Jaak Aaviksoo, the current rector of TalTech, Jarek Kornetski, academic and professor at TalTech, and Tiit Land, the sitting rector of Tallinn University. But let's get started. 2 hours are probably going to fly by. We don't have much time to waste. So perhaps the topic that we haven't talked about yet, Jaak Aaviksoo, the Nurkse scandal. During your tenure as rector, has that been the worst spot on your suit, so to speak? No, I think it's the best lesson that TalTech has gotten over the past 5 years. When you wake up one morning and read in the newspaper that this is an institutional, systematic corruption and fraud, then you feel like you've been hit by a train. But we've had time to think about it and investigate, and we did find out that rules were broken, and that is a shame. But the situation is not as bad as it seemed in the beginning. And the personal lesson for me was that it's not good to trust everyone 100%. And if a hint comes in, or it's actually good to have a whistleblower system in place, so to speak. What did you rearrange in the university? Yes, we rearranged quite a few things. So the first thing was how to give anonymous tips, because that system wasn't good. The Tallinn University crisis meeting, what did you decide there? Well, at Tallinn University, it wasn't a crisis meeting, it was just a meeting to discuss what was going on, what had happened, and also to look inside our university. Well, the contradiction that is inherent here is how do you measure researchers, scientists' working time? What about late hours, weekends? If regulations don't allow for it, if the regulations are too inflexible, then the researchers will find their ways to work around them. Of course, I don't justify at all knowingly causing fraud, but at TalTech and Tallinn University, we had the same questions. We reviewed our regulations. We all had a lot to learn from it, how to proceed projects, how to conduct surveillance. You also have to, of course, always have to have somebody who is responsible for the documentation, who is responsible for the storage of information, who looks at the eligibility of costs, and so on. Everything has to be regulated. And in the end, it comes down to who signs the financial statements, the financial reports.
ei oska öelda, kuidas praegu Tehnikaülikoolis lõpuks
I don't know
on,
how it is here in
aga meie
TalTech,
kogemus
at
ütleb,
Tallinn
et
University,
see
our
lõplik
experience
kinnitab
has
rektori
shown
liige.
that
Vastutab liige.
the final say should come from the rector's office. Did you feel at some point relief that we were not the ones who had the problem of
see ei tulnud otseselt meile, et läks mööda küll jah, aga veel kord, et meil oli kindlustunne, sest meil oli alles
However, we
toimunud
were
läbiviidud
secure in
siseaudit
our
projektide
feeling
menetluse
anyway
koha peal.
because we had just had a project internal audit. Jarek Konecki. When it comes to money, is this a dance with the devil that you just have to do that in content form isn't good for anything?
Olin Valkla rannas
I remember that morning very well. I was at the Valkla beach with my research group. We were sitting at a seminar table. We just looked at each other and thought about how we would answer if we were asked such questions. And we agreed that the answer would be, which projects do you get money from or income from? We would have to say, we have to look over our timesheets and then answer. We get income from very different projects, and projects come and projects go, so managing all that is complicated, and there is so much red tape that we just can't go against. Of course, we can't break the rules. That's self-evident. These things just have to be in order. But I imagine that when it comes to this scandal, they say that who does something also makes mistakes, and mistakes are forgiven, of course. But it was more a question of who was caught lying, and the problems that were arose from the question showed the problems with bureaucracy. So that's a really big problem that actually inhibits our productivity. As a rector, what do you plan to do in order to avoid another crisis like this from happening?
Nagu ma poole sõnaga jõudsin öelda, et kõige olulisem on see, et ei jääda valetamisega vahele ja kõige lihtsam
So lie, but don't get caught.
Well,
the easiest, of course, to avoid that situation is to not lie. So I think the overall ethics and following them rules out these kinds of problems. We have to follow the rules, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We hope that the bureaucracy will get easier, and that will make things more simple. Our next block is about research, scientific work. And this brings us to a topic that has touched all of our candidates. Dietland, Aaviksoo says that rankings are not important. Kornetski says they are. Who's right?
I believe they are important, and I've stated it in the past. They're important for the impact the university has. People look at the ranking list, partners and students look at the ranking list, also potential foreign teachers who we would like to attract. But at the same time, I do agree with my colleague Jaak Aaviksoo that they shouldn't be mystified. So when it gets worse, you don't look at them? No, vice versa. You have to take a look when something disintegrates, gets worse. Partners and students should see the reputation improving. But why aren't the two things interrelated? When the ranking list place improves and the reputation improves. Well, it's a question of the chicken and the egg. Actually, I believe that a reputation does matter, and the place in the ranking list reflects it. It's like with political parties. As the head of a political party, you wake up and look at your rating as a politician, then you'll never become a statesman if that's what drives you, and you can't run a university by just looking at ranking lists. Ranking list results come after reasonable policies, development plan, investments, good communication with partners, and the reputation will improve. And reputations go up and down like political parties' ratings do. So TalTech has nothing to be ashamed of. But what's your priority? Some say that you say that, reputation matters, despite the fact that actually people see that the place in the ranking list is going down. So why is there a drop in the tables? Again, there are about 10 rating lists, and if your place falls in one, then it rises in another. So let's not generalize. It's not true that TalTech reputation is falling. QS in numbers were on the border. So there are a number of positive signs. We're on the radar on THE. Good work policies, as in politics, also in higher education, good work gives results. If you only look at tables and draw unbalanced conclusions, then you get off track. Ranking lists see TalTech dropping, and that's one of our criticisms towards the current rector. If you become rector, how much will you be guided by your will to increase rating? The drop in rating is a result of worsening research results. It's a statistical indicator that shows that in a category of main activity, we've not been successful. And what I paid a lot of attention to is that whatever TalTech plans to do in the broader scheme of things and strategically, it is very important that TalTech focuses more on more research with higher quality. Without it, we don't have a future. And I dare say that without it, Estonia doesn't have a future. If we don't do that, then our place in the ranking list will not improve. So first off, the activity, the result, and then the rating reflects our results. Mr. Kurnitsky, aren't you simplifying it a bit? When I've tried to take a look at what ratings are composed of, then it's not as simple as that research activity changes the rating immediately. There are a lot of nuances and details and aspects and ratios that play into the rating. It's not one-to-one, better research, better ranking list. Well, when we look at Tartu University and how they raised their position from position 400 to the 300s and has done it by more research publications. The publications are well quoted. There's quantity and quality of research both. And of course, there's also opinion polls among researchers. What do you think of TalTech? If we don't have researchers who communicate internationally with other researchers, then there's no result. We need quantity and quality. Tiit Land, you become the rector, and there's a pressure to rise up the ranking list. And as I've heard, and it's been referenced, and it's not difficult to find on the rating list homepage a link to consultation services. Consultation services acquisition, will it be planned into the budget? Do you think this is the right approach? No, I don't think we need to buy the consultation services. I think we are able to analyze ourselves what the indicators are and to draw a parallel with Tallinn University. Then, as long as I've been the rector of Tallinn University, almost 9 years, we've never looked at the rankings. It's not been our goal. But 2 years ago, we discovered that we're in the ranking list, and we started looking at what's going on, the ratios, different absolute numbers, and in QS ranking, also academic reputation plays an important role. So academic staff is consulted and opinion polls are included. And I agree with Jarek Kurnitsky that the indicators that have taken Tallinn University into the rating list that have risen in the past 5 years is internationalization and more research. They're easily viewable, but I would not buy the consultation service to go up in the ranking list. So why aren't you rising up the ranking list? Dietland said they just suddenly realized that they've gone up the ranking list. I think this generalization is not adequate. TalTech in academic ratings is not doing badly, could be doing much better, but again, our internationalization rate is the highest in Estonia. That's one of our advantages, and also when it comes to employability. So working on basic values calmly is what helps us rise up the charts. Of course, if we can compete with Chinese universities that are just running up the list, and that's a huge challenge. Jarek Kornetski. TalTech Academic Union is asking, what are you planning to do? That in internationalization we would regain position 421. Well, in the current situation where we are in position 800 or 600, where?
No, ma ei tea, mille järgi see 421
I don't know where this 421 came from exactly. Maybe it's Times Higher Education.
Või on pigem ta selle 6 rankingu
or
järgi,
is it
kus me oleme täna siis kohal
601 to 650th position and would need to regain 421st position, then yes, it is complicated, and to race faster than others to improve your sport. First, let's focus on reaching the 500s. But what can we do? High quality research, more research, and the university receives its basic funding from the state and must use that basic funding also for research. So there are opportunities here, and it also means that we also get more competition-based funding. University also must assist there, so that researchers are able to bring that money into the university, and then they can work on their research. Would either of you do something different than Kornetski? I think research alone is not enough. Students' opinion is very important. Alumni opinions matter. Quality of studies is very important. So simplifying it down to research is not apt. But as to research, then throughout the last 10 years, especially through the past 5 years, TalTech has been the only large university in Estonia that has increased its share in research. Yes, research is not the only answer. They're all complex activities, but research has a big share and international cooperation. But the easiest way is that if you have a lot of money, like Asian universities have, then you can calculate it. We can acquire a Nobel Prize winner in every single department. But we can focus on our main activities. We need basic funding for research, we'll get back to it, and international cooperation. Let's look at research from one more aspect.
It's clear that without researchers, we cannot have research. And becoming a researcher, of course, presumes that you get to a doctoral degree. Dietland, in your candidate's ideas, you said, I support industrial PhD program development. How would you support it?
Jah, see tähendab ettevõtluskoostöö toetamist. Konkreetselt ettevõtluskoostöö toetamist ma näen läbi sellesama teaduse baasfinantseerimise raha kasutamise läbi suunatud meetme, et toetada ettevõtluskoostööd. Ja selle alla käivad ka doktorantuurid, aga laiemalt doktorantuuri teema on pigem ühiskondlik teema. Et kuidas doktoranti ühiskonnas väärtustatakse, ennekõike kas nende doktorikraad annab noorele inimesele lisandväärtust tööturul. See praegu paraku meil ei tööta. Ja siin on väga palju teemasid, aga konkreetselt ma toetaks seda plaanin toetada läbi konkreetsete meedete, mis tulevad, mis ülikool saab teaduse edendamiseks baasfinantseerimiseks.
Use as in addition to the basic financing to support that activity. Jarek Kornetski, you are from the School of Engineering. How complicated is it to get the master students to go to the doctoral students studies? We are in a complicated situation because most of our PhD students speak Estonian, and what we see recently is in doctoral students is over 50% students who do not speak Estonian. Is that percentage an added value for you? Yes, it is certainly a high value that we do have so many Estonian students. Or does it show that internationally your doctoral program isn't considered strong enough?
Võib-olla ka seda, meil on haridus suures osas eesti keeles,
it might be also because our studies are mostly in Estonian. But when it comes to those Estonians who defend their degrees, they are very much valued, they are very employed, they are private or public sectors. Yes, but how easy is it to get a master's students to go and stay for doctoral students? Describe why it does happen or why it doesn't happen, depending on what your answer is. Actually, the thing is that TalTech is not at a lack of students. And those who come to PhD studies, there are enough candidates if the fee of the reimbursement is enough. But why we have less doctoral students over the past few years in the university as a whole is because our doctoral studies reform was a failure. And that for those who are supervising the theses have been under very much pressure. Why was it a failure? The reform was a failure because we imagined that the national doctoral stipend is something that is in high demand. But today we can come up with topics fast enough, and we have national budget money left over. And the main problem is simple. Those who are supervising the thesis have to have funding for several years, and they have to be able to pay a decent wage to the doctoral student. And that is actually a very high hurdle to overcome. Also, supervising doctoral students who are also working and just studying on the side, that also is a factor. A very complicated question, of course. If it's complicated in your institute, why do you think it will be better as a rector? Well, in our institute, actually, we do not have a problem. We have managed quite well. Like, as I said, we have actually real-life Estonians who are in doctoral studies and going through them. And we have tried to look into why we are exceptional like that. Of course, in construction, there has been an energy turn, and the doctoral students have found application there. Climate neutrality, of course, in construction has been very important recently. So these are the mega trends that perhaps are guiding these directions. Jaak Aaviksoo, I read your visions several times, but your document did not say one word about doctoral students, doctoral studies. Are you, as a rector, just tired of dealing with it, or is it not important? I think the topic of doctoral studies is such an important topic that it actually didn't fit into that short document. Actually, when it comes to industrial PhD studies, this is a TalTech initiative that we started a few years ago. Another important innovation that we undertook is that all TalTech doctoral students get at least the average Estonian wage, so this is so that they would not be embarrassed by the 600 euros. Actually, in TalTech, the doctoral studies are doing quite well. It used to be 20%, now it's 30% of all Estonian doctoral students are here, and I think in 5-10 years we are going to have about 40% of doctoral students. So I'm not worried about new professors coming on, because there are very many people being trained here, and here I do agree fully with Tiit Land and Jarek Kornetski. Today's worry is that we have so many people who want to come into our doctoral studies from abroad, but we don't have enough people here in Estonia coming into doctoral studies because they don't have a perspective here. They don't have what to do with degrees later. So this is something we have to discuss with the government, the parliament, and solve on a national level. Well, if we look at the numbers side by side, TalTech objective is 90 defenses, 66 is the result. That seems like a failure, but if we look at 2008 and 2009, we had 40 theses being defended. So during this whole, the most recent result was the third best ever. So we don't see these numbers going up and down very fast, but how do you feel? What would be the optimal number of theses being defended? It's very difficult to determine what is the optimum. I would like to see PhD defenders be at least, that there would be 30% more than there are now, because I think this is a bottleneck for Estonia. The number of those who have PhD degrees is many times less than in other Nordic countries. Of course, the GDPs are higher and where research is at a very good level. It's a societal topic. It's a matter of societal agreement. What is the value of a doctor's degree? It takes time. It doesn't happen over time. This is a parallel I would draw with teachers. Teachers at some point felt that they were not valued, but at the same time we all value education. We all want a good education for us and our children, and the same thing with doctor studies. Raising that status is long-term work. But as a rector, I would work towards these pre-doctoral entry, so to speak. There was a question about how to get the MA students to PhD studies. I think we should already start dealing with BA studies students and talking to them about what the options are down the line. In Tallinn University, 2/3 of doctoral students are over 30 years old. So we are actually losing an entire generation. So this is something that we should work on, start giving students the possibility and motivation to do research as soon as possible. Well, here's the crazy hypothesis. Maybe those BA students don't want to come into research, Jarek Kornetski, because as you say, in your vision, the university's academic level is lacking. It should be raised. So why would a BA student want to pursue research as a career? Yes, that's a question of the university's reputation. I have pointed out that we are not overcome with candidates, and a lot of the technical curricula are having trouble finding students. But this does indeed start from the bachelor's level. I'm sorry, are you saying that recently, after all the structural changes, after a lot of personnel changes, the university administration has been passive? We haven't brought in enough world-scale professors. Well, I'm sure there have to be some reasons, because essentially we have been in a stagnation and we see others beside us running faster. Kaaviksoo is saying that our numbers are going up, but I think it's all due to inflation, so to speak. We see a marginal growth. And we are still standing still compared to what the University of Tartu is doing, what Nordic universities are doing, wherever you look. And without a doubt, it's being noticed outside of the house as well. So if our reputation is they're doing something incomprehensible in TalTech, that's not good. You have to be a dynamically developing university to bring people in.
Is it a challenge for the rector and the rector's office? Is the top management issue. Jaak Aaviksoo, when we look at TalTech researchers' work publication amongst the 10% of the most reputable scientific journals, then in comparison to Tartu University over past 10 years, the position is equal. The developments have been on par. But when we compare TalTech to Aalto, then the difference has increased. Aalto is more quoted. So why has the difference increased? I can't tell you exactly about Aalto. I don't know what's behind Aalto data, but there are many measures for research. And I personally believe in the researchers themselves, especially the capacity of our researchers with PhDs. And 5 years ago, the H-index, the average number of publications that have been quoted a certain number of times was 5. In Tartu, it was 12. And at Aalto University, it was 16 to 17. So 2 times worse than Tartu, 3 times worse than Aalto. And now, 4.5 years later, TalTech's professorship has increased its H-index twofold. These are the people who bring PhD students who will be doing better science year on year. These things don't happen in the course of 1 or 2 years. I believe in the professors at TalTech. I believe in the current PhD students. The investments that have been made are starting to bear fruit. And I believe that the difference with Tartu University is such that in some places we're better. High-level publications, for example, I just checked from the homepage of Tallinn University. It's indicated TalTech 1.34 publications per academic employee, Tartu University 1.32, and Tallinn University 1.07. So there are places where better than Tartu University. There are places where worse. So keep calm. Let's keep working reasonably. Let's believe in our students and teachers and professors. Tiitland, your goal is in 10 to 15 years, I see that TalTech's goal is to reach the level of Nordic technology universities in research and development, innovation, entrepreneurial cooperation, and knowledge transfer. So how would you catch up in 10 to 15 years to Nordic universities? Supporting research is the first point. Providing the academic staff and professors, research fellows, the opportunity to do research. Isn't it possible right now? Well, a specific measure that I wanted to discuss is establishing a grant fund to use the budget we get from the state, so basic funding, that's about 9 million currently. That's the only research funding that in the past year has increased. The state has increased, and I suggest taking 4.5 million of it and put it in the grant fund. So this sum is comparable to the sum that the researchers get as research grants every year. So basic funding is 9 million, and half of that we research. And to use this money in an earmarked way, in a transparent way. So you would redistribute the existing resources. It's not redistribution, but it would be a very transparent way of funds coming to researchers. Currently, we're in a situation where we know that research agency competitions cannot give funding to a number of good research groups. There's a high competition, and these are groups are in danger of losing motivation, that they would have a measure that they know that they can apply the funding from, and it'd be a very transparent system. I actually wanted to get to the topic of money in a second. You described your idea. There's a viewer question that I'd like to ask. And please, 2 examples from all of you. How the reputation of researchers of PhD studies could be made more popular in society. What are the steps that you as the rector of the university can take to make that happen? Jaak Aaviksoo. I don't know whether it should be promoted, but the biggest problem, but PhD studies should be promoted or not? Well, I don't think it's about selling. PhD studies should not be seen as something on its own. The goal is to train people who have high-paying jobs, who the society needs, who the state needs, entrepreneurs need. There's demand for the competence and good salaries are paid, but the current problem is that these people often make less than 2,000 euros after graduation. So there's no point in telling our youth that go into PhD studies when they know they are not going to make much money. As a minister, did you pay more to those who had PhD? Well, so-and-so. I tried to, but the current challenge in society is that a doctorate degree and professorship. Now we currently have a big debate what we should do with the position of professor. Tartu University is also planning to create more professor positions, and then the minimum salary of a professor would be close to 1,700. So that would kill the prospects for young people. It's the career prospects that attract people. Jarek Kurnitski, what would your steps be? Firstly, this question was about promotion. I think this should be done professionally. It's not about just making it popular. And secondly, currently we have deterred the PhD students who earlier did their studies alongside working and then started applying the knowledge immediately at work. Then we are opening that possibility up again, and then the PhD students can apply what they learn immediately at their current job. Estonian situation is complicated. What Jaak said is it's not wrong that the PhDs would not find a job, and in some areas the only opportunity is academic career, but in technical specialties that's not an issue. Often young PhD students in technical specialties don't want to give up their jobs, and we give that opportunity to them, that they continue working, that they defend their degree after 6 or 7 years and they can apply what they learn at their job. Well, leaving aside the PhD students who enter PhD studies to become researchers and enter an academic path, but in society, with reasons, we need to convince society that people with PhD should get higher salaries in public sector, for example. Should it be in the law? Well, maybe not in the law, but in some other regulation. We don't have to take it to the parliament. And also companies should value PhDs more. We don't have that currently. When somebody with a PhD applies for a job somewhere, then they're often seen as someone who's overqualified, that this person doesn't want to cooperate, wants to work on their own. So this is an issue of societal mindset. There's a lot we can do here, but I'd like to reiterate that it can't be done overnight. It will take time in society. Like in Finland, coming back to the profession of a teacher, in Finland, the profession of a teacher is very popular. It took 20 to 30 years to make it happen and now we see the results. Coming back to distribution of basic funding, core funding, what, Jarek Kornetsi, do you think should be changed in the current system? Tiit and I have not agreed on this, but Tiit already explained it quite well. He read it from your papers? Well, who knows? Well, sometimes views are similar, but currently the problem is that the core financing, 9 million euros of it, if that is distributed alongside the general fund, then it's like helicopter distribution, and it's used for master studies or bachelor studies or for other purposes. But tell us then, why is it so currently? What do you think? It's just that currently the understanding is that the funds are used wisely, but it's like on the state level. When there's a lot of money, then it disappears somewhere, and then everybody comes and says, we had money, we don't have it anymore, our pockets are empty. So it's quite comical. So you would allocate it yourself. I would take half of the core financing. Like Tiit said, run public grant competitions. And what I'd like to add here is that at the grant competition, we prefer those who have not received funding from the research agency. So you would give the money to those who are not being found eligible. Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that you're not in the top 15%, for example, because the success rate can only be 15%, and they've just lost out. And with high probability, it's due to it's happened just by accident. There are so many different aspects here. Researchers are so disappointed when they just lose out and the university doesn't help them either. That there's no grant competition, they can't reapply for funding, and an internal grant competition would mean that they would reapply with the research agency next time and might be successful.
So, Jakavik, so why does the university allocate funds as it does, so not through a competition? Well, several reasons. First, most researchers feel, and that's even in national documents, that in Estonia we do have a lot of competition-based funding, and that creates a lot of instability. So we need to increase the core financing, the stable financing. And for that, we have increased the core financing from 12 million to 40 million, and that has been targeted very knowingly to core financing, not into competitions, but to core financing. So a person is employed, they know that they have money, they can apply for grants, they can get other funds, but they have their basic income. About 4 or 5 years ago, we discussed this in the university. The same issues were on the table here at TalTech, and we found that it does not increase the stability, it only reallocates funds because now new money is coming in. That is why back then we decided that since it doesn't mean new money coming in, then stability is more important. Of course, we can reopen this topic, but this, of course, certainly means that somebody will have to have money taken away. Jarek Kornetsi, do you feel more stable? I think if we have to look for mistakes, then that was a fatal mistake 5 years ago that was made, because precisely with that money you can make new money come in. And this competition-based funding, by the way, here is only 7.7 million. So it's not true that this competition-based money is, it is true that it is unstable, but we can use Horizon 2020, we can ask the EU, where there are so many programs open, we can ask ministries and wherever. So if you help researchers, if you grow that core financing, that is targeted at supporting research, if we use that so that strong research groups could apply for more funding from elsewhere, it would of course be possible to amplify that money and bring in more money to the university. I would like to add something to what Jaak Aaviksoo said. The core financing, increasing that, the idea was to take down some of the tension that comes from the competition, but that hasn't happened. If researchers can't get part of the money transparently, I mean, imagine you're researchers, nothing changes. Let's say you just missed out, you know there's more core financing coming in, but how it's allocating is not transparent. Researchers don't feel that these processes are transparent right now. We have several partners who have also sent us questions through their representatives. First is the Employees Confederation, Ivo.
Tere, hea TalTechi pere, austatud rektori kandidaadid. Infotehnoloogia ja laiemalt ettevõtlussektori esindajana puudutab minu küsimus ülikooli ja erasektori koostöövõimaluste laiendamist. Teadupärast Teadus- ja Haridusministeerium koos Majandusministeeriumiga on loomas Eesti järgneva 15 aasta teadus- ja arenduse innovatsiooni ettevõtluse arengukava. Ja selle arengukava üheks keskseks teemaks on teadmussiire. Ja nüüd see küsimus puudutabki seda, et TalTech on olnud väga eeskujulik erasektoriga koostööprojektide tegija. Aga me teame, et selle arengukava eesmärk on, et tuua erasektori investeeringud teadus- ja arendusse suurusjärgud siis 0,6% SKP-st 2%-ni. See on väga suur hüpe ja minu küsimus ongi see, et mida ülikool saaks teha järgmise sammuna või järgmise tasemena selleks, et erasektoriga koostööd tihendada ja aidata erasektori siis see hüppe ära teha. Jõudu teile!
Done. Thank you very much. That's a very important question, and I think reaching that 2% private sector contributions towards research is of utmost importance to get that strategy to work at all. What can a university do? As it is with all forms of cooperation, it comes down to people. And here the question is not about the university as an institution and working with an organization. There's a person, a researcher, and there's a businessman. We have to get these two people together, we have to get them talking. And universities a few years ago created a platform. What was it called? Adapter. Yes, indeed. Sorry. That is a platform where the private sector can ask questions from universities, and universities pick up these questions, so universities should be very active. And the support for knowledge transfer has to be very adequate and very systematic, and we have to keep an eye on the fact that there is a conversation going on, because if there's no conversation, there's nothing happening. I 100% agree that it is a question of to be or not to be. Because this is how we show people that research is beneficial to the country, to the economy, and the situation has gotten somewhat better. So where we see increases in our funds is the core financing and also contracts with businesses. Another thing that has happened is the smart specialization program, the READUP program, but also, of course, researchers are working more and more with businesses. And I dare say that a researcher can very much work with businesses. And it's more complicated because it's not like with grants that take a long time to apply. and then you have 4 or 5 years to work. If you get a contract with a business, you have to start working right away, and sometimes the work can take 2 months. So here Mectri is helping out a little already, but there is a lot of room for development. So that is definitely something that the new rector has to deal with. The steps that we have taken, they are bearing fruit. We have the industrial PhD, which we did. We also have applied science program that will be financed from the Ministry of Communication and Economy. And with ITL and with the Employees Confederation, the TalTech has been one of the biggest supporters. That, of course, will support our private sector. But we have a bigger problem in the private sector. When you look at the countries that spend a lot of money, they have pharmaceutical businesses, space industry, air industry, car industry. Now these are the axis of industrial development, and we don't have these in Estonia. We have a lot of subcontractors, so structurally it is complicated. But again, the steps that we have already taken, the industrial PhD, the applied science fund, and the TalTech direction, that at least in IT and engineering, a lot of our professors and researchers have experience from either industry or business. So these kinds of exchanges, these joint programs, of course, what we're doing right now, 10 million a year, that's not a lot. Could be 20 in 5 years, but it means taking concrete steps and not just putting out slogans. The first 53 minutes have gone very quickly. It's time for the first break, and over that break, what you will see on screen is what is TalTech? And we will speak about the university's role in society in just a minute.
Welcome back to TalTech's rector's debate on the 18th of May. Rector will be elected from among 3 candidates who are present here, Tiit Land, Jarek Kurnitski and Jaak Aaviksoo. We're speaking about the role of a university in society. Some quick questions to begin with. A quote from Mente et Manu: we really need that the board would come to a clear understanding and it would coincide with national policy. So this is to do with the involving foreign universities. Is it something where the university is not autonomous? A rector is in office for 5 years and a parliament for 4 years, and every time the university has to realign its position in society? No, it's probably not quite like that. But university is autonomous. Yes, we can make decisions, and the decision to make universities institutions under public law was correct, but it doesn't mean that we block ourselves from society if we don't discuss with employers, with the interest of the state. Do we want more foreign labor? Do we want people with PhDs? Do we want EU citizens or from elsewhere? Are we focusing on the state? Which are export markets? If we don't coordinate that, then it's just TalTech's academic affairs. But as a university, we need to look out for common good, that different universities and the state and employers all agree on the priorities. Tiitlan, I support developing projects and development cooperation, focusing on applying research results for the benefit of Estonian economy and society. So the society is broader than the political positions of the government or who is the university working for in everybody's interest. Something that works in everybody's interest doesn't work. Well, as an institution under public law, receiving public funding, of course, works for everyone. In case of the government, like Jakob said, the university is autonomous. University sets its own goals, has the right to do so, but in the development plan, the university must take into consideration that the knowledge that we create should not be retained between the walls of the university. It's time to come down from the ivory tower and spread the knowledge more widely. Is it general philosophy or a problem that TalTech has? No, it's not a TalTech problem. It's something that applies to all universities. TalTech's academic community for years used to work for their own results, for themselves, didn't really promote their results. And I think this time is in the past, and the university must open itself more to society and listen to what the society wants. The specific question was about intellectual property commercialization. Well, that has to do with inventions and R&D, so that's a different topic, but it's a specific activity and it's also a philosophy. And on my platform, I've also stated that the university should be active not only in the region where it's located, but more broadly outside Harju County as well. Jarek Kornitski. I have a specific question for you. How should the university behave if the government has a negative attitude towards migration? So how should the university adapt to such a situation? The university is adapting, and the government taking a negative attitude towards migration is probably temporary. Probably something that relates to the current economic and healthcare crisis. And the negative attitude doesn't really apply to higher education. We need specialists with higher education. The issue is how many people do we train in the English language, how many in the Estonian language, and how we find out what the training needs are. So this big picture, this is quite weak in Estonia. Nobody has that big picture. And one university doesn't see the overarching picture very well. So we do need to consult with professional organizations, coordinate with them, who wants English-speaking specialists, how many of which specialists to train. This is everyday work for a university to serve the economy and society. Let's look at internalization separately. A question from academician Urmas Varblane, targeted at cooperation on societal level, as done in Nordic countries. When we reach that situation?
Soovin kandidaatidele huvitavat arutelu. Ja püüan siis omalt poolt ka veidi panustada ühe küsimusega. Viimasel ajal on väga palju räägitud sellest, et ülikoolidel on teaduse ja õppe kõrval kolmas väga tähtis roll ühiskonda teenida läbi koostöö nii ettevõtluse kui avaliku sektori. Ja sellest suunast on ka mu küsimus. Mida kavatsevad rektorid?
What are the candidates planning to do so that TalTech would work with business sector on the same level as Aalto University? How would you motivate the different subunits to work together so that their contribution would hold more value to the business sector? Jaak Aaviksoo. First of all, we've spoken quite a lot about entrepreneurial cooperation and business cooperation, and for TalTech it is a priority, a focus. But differently from academician Varblane, I do not believe that TalTech, also in figures, in statistics, currently do less cooperating than Aalto. I've looked at business income at TalTech, it's 10% of overall income. And at Aalto University, it's about 4%. And in their case, in the past 5 years, it has dropped twofold. And actually, as a result of national policy, they would like it to be more, but the national policy doesn't support it. Second issue to do with cooperation between subunits. We have launched an academic development plan, and across the departments we agreed on focus areas. For example, smart city as one topic, smart environments, internet, 5G, self-driving vehicles, smart meters, sensors, doors that open on their own, would bring together IT specialists, material specialists, economists. So we have 5 areas that we've worded. Next 5 years will show whether we can create real quality that we can sell to businesses as a market product. Tiit Land. How to facilitate cooperation? Well, for one, the university should facilitate inter- or multidisciplinarity more. And I agree that, well, we have a small number of companies, and is it possible to increase the number or not? But let's think of something bigger, where TalTech could be the leader, and this would also contribute to developing cooperation. If we keep in mind the Green Deal of the European Commission and developing business, then TalTech could set a goal to lead the ideas of circular economy in Estonia, to be number 1 in that area. Non-biological resources and material use, and this would give a wonderful opportunity to integrate or bring different groups into the study process and research. Well, I even have the name for it, the ring, the circuit that would bring together the know-how, and we can work with other universities in Estonia and in the Nordics and Europe, and of course studies should be involved, and I've stressed in my platform that principles of sustainable development should be brought into studies, and we can also introduce a multidisciplinary circular studies subject, where the basic principle is problem-based solutions, teamwork, and multidisciplinary approach.
Yes, perhaps, of course, this question has received many different answers. What I would like to add is the comparison with the University of Aalto, which has been very successful in financing the highest levels of science. So that is why, of course, cooperation with businesses has actually moved to other universities. There are other very strong universities and less strong universities, of course, in Finland who do this very well. So maybe Chalmersi would be a more appropriate comparison. They are positioning themselves as the best in cooperation with business, so we should look towards them to see how much cooperation they are doing indeed with business, how they are determining what are the needs in the society. And the Green New Deal that was pointed out, how our energy systems have to change. To some degree, the energy turn has already been done, but over the next 30 years, we have to work very hard to reach climate neutrality. Health is another mega trend that we have to work on. We don't have lack for topics, but it's clear that we can't choose the country that we are in. We can't choose the businesses that are founded here, so we have to make do with what we have. So it's also a question of will. You have been very critical towards your colleagues. You have said that the university has been arrogant towards businesses. What does that mean? That means that we don't talk enough with our partners. We don't discuss things thoroughly enough. And we don't map the needs enough, also when it comes to studies and curricula, because that's where we get most feedback about. Oftentimes we have businesses or employees' confederations coming to us, but it's very specific that you said. Ignorant and arrogant is what you said. In what context? Well, sometimes we feel that we know better and that we know which specialists will be needed in the future, and U.S. businesses should take them. I mean, that's not the best way to go about it. We don't want to discuss enough with our partners and take their wisdom into account. But you don't want to go into specifics about which case. No, I don't want to name the business whose invitation has been ignored or hasn't been really answered so far. Let's do a little game. We know that the government has decided that the shale oil refinery will be built. What do you think? Should it be built or not? TalTech rector understands what this is about. So, Dietland, what do you see? Yes? Yes to the factory? Mm-hmm. What about the circular economy? No, but new technologies will come. Well, let's dig up the shale and then the technology will come. Well, we'll see. Jarek Kornitski? All opinion leaders have said that it should be built. Toomas Luman, for example, has said so. Well, he wants to build. Luman does not want to build it, but Luman pointed out that the Ida-Virumaa is in a very specific situation, and in that context, something going against the green economy could actually work in this kind of context. I came out of politics, so I wouldn't have to answer these complicated questions. Well, let's say that not to leave too much of a brown-black image, I would like to think on that a little bit more. Question from the viewer. We have SMEs dominating here in Estonia. They have very little research funding, so how do you favor cooperation with small and medium-sized enterprises? What should a university do to favor that kind of cooperation? Well, with very small companies, it's quite complicated. That might have been the ignorance that Kornitski pointed out. Well, actually, we have the Ministry of Economy and Communication that has that innovation measure. So that can be used, for example, 10 researcher hours or 50 researcher hours. This is something that a small company has access to. Medium-sized enterprises, rotating personnel, that's the best way to do it. We change personnel for a little time, and then we find common points, and then we take it from there. This kind of rotation in small countries is very successful. Yes, I wanted to point out adapter, which should be further developed to get people together. So point one is if we don't get people in the same room, nothing will happen. And second, use the measures that we have actively. We have European Commission measures where we have money left over, whether they're smart programs or in any case, we can be more proactive in counseling companies. So actually, well, we don't turn down small enterprises. Small companies also usually have small problems. We just measure it in our lab, or when we calculate it, or we do computer simulations, and they get the results. And the work comes to less than 10,000 euros usually, and we do a lot of that kind of work. Now, these innovation and development credits from the Enterprise Estonia, they exist. The companies can ask for those. They should just use them more. So this is just a part of daily work, and this is something that needs to be used more. Thank you. Let's go to the next block. And now we will be talking about internationalization. Tiit Land, you promise in your vision, I am for English language curricula and their development, first and foremost at the master's level. I will initiate the drafting of the principles of internationalization in the university. What will that solve? Well, the first objective of internationalization is academic quality and ensuring that quality. I mentioned internationalization and putting together the principles, a document. We have internationalized very well, very strongly, and the principle has been the more the better. So we have been accepting most students, most candidates who pass the threshold, who have the money to come here. But now we're in a situation where we have international students between 10 and 15% in all universities across Estonia. I think that's optimal. We shouldn't increase that. But we need a clear strategy, which means we need to know which curricula we need. We need to develop those curricula. We need to see whether they are economically sustainable. We should also think about the multicultural environment. I am very much for that. I would like to see students from different cultures here. And we have to think about how we support international students. Within the university, it's important to see whether internationalization is something that all units have benefited from, or whether it's concentrated into certain institutions or institutes or certain curricula. So it should be wider. And another important factor is that we have about 13-14% of international students. But our students going abroad, it's about 2 to 4%. Internationalization actually also means that we need to send more students abroad. But of course, if we have a lot of international students here, they can get that experience here. Jarek Koretsky, what are we solving with internationalization? We are solving most certainly the reputation question. If the master's program doesn't exist in English, how else can you study here? Study with the famous professors. What do you have to do? Study Estonian first? I mean, that's asking a little too much. But it is important that our good work does not show anywhere if we do not offer the last levels of studies in English. So I see English being added more and more. And we have seen that an increasing number of companies are happy to employ English language people. We do, of course, hope that they will learn Estonian. But of course, if a person just arrives, they will not start right away. Of course, if they stay here, if they work here, that's good. And surely they will manage Estonian better as well. So, in summary, the internationalization is good for the reputation, yes. We are repairing our reputation and the lack of students in certain curricula where we don't have enough people. So 20% of personnel, it's the foreign. Is that optimal? I don't know if I would put an exact figure on the optimal number. I think that is normal. It's a good number. It could be more, it could be less. It doesn't really change the big picture.
Jaak Aaviksoo, seeing a university as an international one, what problem are we resolving? We're making Estonia bigger through alumni, through cooperation. If we want to develop as a state and as people, we need to do more international cooperation, join value networks, move up in the value chain, like my colleague academician Varblane says. We need networking. It's building networks outside Estonia, educating Estonian delegates. A number of partnerships we already have, like working with the University of Munich and the BMW car manufacturer. These projects come through personal contacts, and the earlier as students you get that experience, the longer the cooperation. So we definitely need to strengthen the networks, but I also believe that we should transition to, well, from quantity, how much have we invested, 5% or 20%, to quality, that we work with those who are strong. Let's make it more international. The question is in English. Maria Makarov is the head of the Finnish Biocenter, and she has sent in her question.
Mr. Vaino, director candidates, audience, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from Helsinki. The European Union has launched a new program for universities. It is called the European University Initiative. In this program, universities, together with partner universities of their choice, form alliances to raise the quality of their activities in education, research, or innovation through cross-border collaboration. Now, the success of such alliances will be a much better indicator for the quality of European universities than any mechanical rankings. TalTech, together with 6 world-class universities, European universities, have formed an alliance, which is one of the 17 alliances that have been accepted into this new program. So, director candidates, could you please first tell the audience what the partner universities of your alliance are and what the mission of this alliance is? And then to my question, how would you, as the rector of TalTech, take full advantage of this international collaboration to improve the quality of the activities of your university?
So this was the question. Thank you very much, Maria Makarov. Jarek Kornitski, floor is yours. Of course, our cooperation partners are Nordic universities and European universities. These are tied to us more, and cross-border cooperation is definitely needed and allows the university to specialize in quite narrow areas and to be amongst the best in narrow areas. And then you have the resource to contribute to that narrow area, and another university focuses on another area, and so we can build up 2 strong areas, and if there are 17 of them, then it creates a lot of synergy. And to get students mobilized, that is a challenge. Like Tiit said, only a few percentage of our own students want to go abroad for studies for a semester or a year. So there's a lot of work to be done here. We already have the possibilities, the opportunities, but students are also lazy sometimes. It's easier to stay home. Are they lazy, or is there another reason? Somebody says that, well, they're so lazy they don't want to do it. Then I don't believe it. You must have innate motivation to get the credit and to gain something. It's been made very simple. It's been made simple already. You get funding and accommodation. Why is there so little interest? Well, young people, open your eyes and go. Jaak Aaviksoo. Thank you, Maria-Liisa, for the question. She has noticed what hasn't been discussed yet, that there's a call for proposals to compose associations of universities that are trying to bring universities' education level to a new level. TalTech has taken a big step here. We have agreed with technical universities that are some of the best in the world. Munich, one of the top universities in France as well, and Weinhoven, and Danish Technical University, and Technical University of Prague, in order to form a consortium. And the idea is that the students from all these universities are free to move between the alliance members as they wish. And they will receive proper credit. So completely free movement between top-level universities. And everybody in the university sphere knows the benefit. We are exposed to top-level universities, and we are providing this opportunity to all the students at TalTech. I do hope that this agreement will be implemented after 1st of September, after the corona crisis. Well, figuratively speaking, I'd say that the European Universities project TalTech campus will increase 70-fold, and students will have one big campus. And the biggest challenge for me is making sure that the students do go abroad. The opportunities are there, but there are financial issues. Many of these universities are very large, very wealthy, so this requires a lot of resource from TalTech as well, because the support from European Commission is quite modest. It's like seed money. But how can we find additional resources and send our students out? Because the main issue with sending our students out is that they're working already in Estonia, or there are family reasons why they don't want to go abroad. But it's a completely new dimension. There's one big campus, and they don't have to extend their studies if they go abroad, which often currently happens. But this requires a lot of resources and work. We've spoken a lot about what we can gain, but what can we provide? Two things. What are TalTech's strengths that networked universities in Europe can expect from us and will gain from us? I don't know the specific focus, but what we can provide, contribute, is cybersecurity and other areas where Estonia is very strong, digital issues, and TalTech can provide a lot in social sciences and governance. Again, from the e-state perspective, Jarek Kornitsky, we have the famed professors, we have a few dozen of them here. For example, efficiency of buildings, and in IT and other engineering and science and engineering areas, we have a lot to contribute, but not as much as we could contribute.
Well, we have an EU recognized smart city. I think this is an area where we are very visible and where we can have a lot of offer. Of course, e-governance, which Dietland referred to, and everything that has to do with cyber security, secure computing, secure algorithms. This work has been going on for decades at the Cybernetics Institute. And student projects, the ise-auto, self-driving car, if BMW and Daimler Chrysler are coming to see it, there must be something there. Our candidates have also said recorded messages about what TalTech's biggest strengths are. So let's watch that now. Our greatest strength is certainly our people, our academic personnel and our students. Students are the ones who develop into the kinds of people who will make our economy grow. All the engineers, the programmers, economists, students and teachers, the motivation, the hunger for knowledge, to work with partners, with businesses, that's the strength that takes TalTech towards the future. And of course, the team, the people at the heads of the institutes, and that's how it should be. Certainly the people, the students and the workers, motivated people, creating something new for them every day. And the strength is also certainly the environment. TalTech is the only campus-based university in Estonia, and that's quite unique here. And this, of course, creates better synergy, better cooperation environment, and better conditions for studies. Thank you very much for those opinions. We still have questions that have to do with management, governance, and studies before we get to the journalist's question. Tiit Land, in your vision, you are the only candidate who has a separate part about studies. What kind of changes or will there be needed to improve studies and results and the quality of studies? The biggest challenge is reducing dropouts. Is that a bigger problem here than at Tallinn University? Perhaps by 2-3 percentage points, but I think TalTech does have the biggest dropout rates of the bigger universities. I think all the universities have that problem. They are working towards getting that down. That is a very important topic for me. How do we get about doing it? We have to map the reasons why students are dropping out. For example, I know that students at TalTech, at the beginning of their studies, are relatively, well, let's say oftentimes what obstructs them is the big general subjects, the mandatory subjects. So perhaps from the beginning we could tie these studies more to their specific majors, because we can't, of course, we have to keep in mind that you can't have thermal engineers who don't know about thermodynamics, but of course the quality of studies is very important, reducing dropouts. Jaak Aaviksoo also wrote about how there are very few students in STEM curricula. This is a big problem not just in this university. I have studied chemistry, and I know that in the Estonian universities there are very few people studying chemistry. The quality of studies is very important, you say in your document. Which one is more important for you, the quality of the studies or the labor market needs? Well, labor market needs is, of course, number one, because that justifies our existence. If the university can't meet labor market needs, then something is very wrong. And covering labor market needs, I'm sorry, doesn't it make it kind of like an applied university or a vocational institution? Our task is to provide workers, but what about academics? Well, we are schooling top professionals that are needed on the labor market. Here, TalTech is managing quite well. if we do anything well, then the studies here are at a very good level. Our people, our graduates do get work and usually work in their own field that they studied. But, of course, we do see in Estonia that a few thousand people are educated in Estonia who will then have to retrain. And Tiit said that he is training, for example, teachers, even if he has 3 people coming for a curriculum. But we do see in some curricula some sad figures, and things are not entirely in place. So this is something that the ministry should coordinate more, because otherwise we are wasting money. So there should be some direction from the ministry. Yes, there should be. And each student should have a potential workplace waiting for them. So that's what we should think about before educating them. Jakob, so you said that an important indicator for you is the graduates' wages after they graduate. Does that not mean that the university is just running behind the labor market, not showing the way, leading the way? No, I don't think so, because I think employers also are looking to solve future problems, and they are developing towards the future. Wages, it's very important, because wages show how much the employer values the employee, our graduate. And that is why more and more around the world, people are not looking so much at academic figures, but the value of graduates on the labor market, in the case of top university as well, because that's important for future students, for current students. So I still think if our graduates get below the average wage, then we have to look at why. But TalTech doesn't have the kinds of curricula that produce results like that anymore. We had some, but we closed them. And on average, the TalTech graduate earns about 20% above average wages. Argo Metsla has sent in a question. Over the past 5 years, there have been more reforms in TalTech than during the previous 25 years. From the perspective of the board and the development unit, these reforms have been good and well-placed. Students are satisfied to be here, as we can learn from the survey. And if we look at from the side of the alumni and the development fund, the university has supported the alumni movement. And right now what we see is the development fund stipends. Most of these stipends have been offered by our own alumni, and the system is working very well. And this leads me to my question. We have had 5 years of reforms, but what's next? In your opinion, over the next 5 years, what will be the most important outputs of the university? Jaak Aaviksoo, let's begin with you, please.
Well, the most important output of the university is its alumni. That's how it was and that's how it is. If alumni are happy, if they find work, if they're distinguished people in society, then it's a good university. But I'd word it in the following way. I have no doubt about the output, but when you ask about the biggest challenge, then that's future students, the ones who are still considering which school to go to, and how can TalTech attract the best of them. If we can choose the best students, then they will graduate, they will become even better alumni. Well, how can you attract them? What to do? What have we done? At Tartu University, the method was organizing competitions, speaking to all the best pupils at upper secondary schools. Now we've launched the same thing in TalTech. 3 years ago, we got 5% of the best upper secondary school graduates. Now it's over 10%. If we are able to snatch up a third of the best high school graduates, then we've done something important. Jarek Korinski. Well, the students who have graduated with a gold medal from upper secondary school are very pleasant students, but we have quite a few specialties competing for any students at all. And also TalTech specialties, curricula are complicated, and pupils from comprehensive school don't know about all the curricula much. And so we need to do targeted marketing of curricula and make the specialties offered visible to target audience and to explain what they mean so that people understand what they can learn here. And some food for thought, that it's easy to transfer from one curriculum to another, that once you find the right university, later you find the right specialty. So at first, maybe more general subjects and choosing a specialty later. Well, the bachelor's and master's studies sort of go in that direction, but in integrated curricula, we see that dropout rate reduces when specialty subjects start quite early, so that people see that they will gain these and these skills, which they will be able to apply in their job later. It's written in your program as well, but technically, how would it work that we get together, let's say 100 students, so they're here for 2 weeks, and then we see that, well, 20 want to study that and 20 want to study something else, but, well, how would you organize it? No, you are admitted to a curriculum, and in a year's time you choose your major or something like that. So that would help the specialties with complicated titles that pupils from comprehensive schools don't understand yet. But after spending a year in the university, they start understanding the importance of specific specialties. Well, now the focus shifted to students in answering to this question. So recently, we heard that well, students should go and harvest potatoes in autumn. Well, it wouldn't be bad for their communal spirit, and they support each other. But coming to interdisciplinary studies, the problems and solutions nowadays are born in cooperation, and it's also written in my platform that to add to interdisciplinary studies, we need multidisciplinary approach, and TalTech does have interdisciplinary curricula, but it should be extended, that we should bring students from 4 to 5 specialties together. Then we have exchange of thoughts. So teamwork, resolving problems, all skills to work on. When you think about ranking lists and what students look at, they look at their remuneration rates of graduates, but more and more students also look at a sustainability strategy of the university, whether it exists or not. Do we want the best students? Well, if we do, then I believe the best students with more ambition do take a look at that, the ones who are more motivated. Dear participants, dear viewers, we have some time left. I'll be handing over to journalists in a minute, but I have 3 more questions myself. Let's move on to management of university, budget, work environment, everything. Jarek Kurnitski, quoting you, we must admit that many right things have been done, but sometimes in a way that in academic staff and student body has caused a counter-reaction. Maybe it's a rhetoric question, but does every change that everybody likes is no change at all, and every problem that causes some strife is actually efficient and has some content to it, just management truth. Of course, when carrying out big changes and reforms, then, well, everybody needs to change the way they operate, and there may be short-term resistance. But if 6 months later people sense that the top management is not engaged in the right activities, or professors have to fight stupidity, then the question is, what has been the quality of management? Can you give some examples of stupidity? Well, specific examples. At one time it said that all salaries should be paid from one financial source, then nobody can ask the question whether salaries have been paid from the right place or not, but we know that technically it's impossible because funders have their own conditions, and those conditions must be followed even if they don't make sense. Second example, something that we've been bouncing back and forth for months, whether institutes themselves should start paying rent for study halls, giving lectures in halls that we should pay for it. If such questions are coming down to us, then, well, department has constructive discussion, and we can't focus on things of relevance because people just explode because of such things. Well, might be a nice way to keep an eye on the cause, but over-administration that's burdensome and that nobody understands, well, because the role of the university is to offer an education. Tiit Land, the university needs stability and peace. Many reforms have been carried out. I will do my best that everybody would enjoy working at the university. Well, the pandemic has brought stability and calm, but what are you planning to do to make sure that everybody who works here likes their work? I'd like to start from the fact that I'd like to state that I'm a team player. I've been one as a rector for the past 9 years, and I believe it has brought me forward, and it has brought the university forward in difficult times, in times of difficult reforms. And they've been successful in the sense that all problems have been solved in-house. And now 5 years later, I see that employees are satisfied. The satisfaction is increasing. We measure and poll satisfaction each year. And this is what I would continue to do at TalTech as well. If I'm elected director, I'm a team player. Decisions and processes must be negotiated. Joint discussion, reasoning, transparency, and specific activities as well. I see the need and reason to initiate a discussion regarding whether the current management model at TalTech should be changed. The current management model is quite vertical, where the rector appoints the deans. Well, it is discussed by the councils, and directors are appointed, or should some election boards be involved in appointing deans? Maybe in the Senate, we should revise these things. But even if we have reports on Estonian higher education which say that management systems of Estonian universities are not dynamic, don't allow quick changes, except for TalTech. There are such reports. Despite that, you would still say that we should reverse this. I'm not saying we should reverse it. I'm saying it should be reviewed, revised. It's not turning back to the way things used to be. At Tallinn University, there's no point in having the same things plan and deliberate and decide things and implement. What I mean is inclusion, and with fast decisions. What is a fast decision? And implementing a decision quickly. If a structural reform takes place in 6 months or 2 years, and if we measure the results in 5 years' time, will we know which was the better option? Jaak Aaviksoo.
In your vision, you said that the university has to modernize the culture of the organization, also emphasize internal communication, and the objective is to increase motivation and satisfaction, and that has to also be monitored. Well, the fact that you're saying you're planning on it doesn't mean that it's not there or that it needs improvement. We have measured satisfaction over the last 3 years. We used Kantar Emor, the market research company. So in 2014 to 2017, the satisfaction was quite low. But then, after the reforms, I was actually afraid that the big reforms would create a lot of tension and a lot of problems. And of course, there's also a psychological price for reforms always. But now, a year and a half after the last reform, we have raised the satisfaction level, but it also has to keep going up. But we've heard some criticism from the other candidates towards your management style as well. Well, that's not a problem. You have to be critical. You have to point out weaknesses. And I think what we've heard today, there's nothing surprising here. Let's say the organizational satisfaction and developing motivation, that's very important. We do have plans in place for that. Each time we have a development plan, we deal with the subject, and every year and a half we measure satisfaction. I'm not sure if we can make a leap as big as we had the last time we did a survey, but in any case, these figures are going up. Last question, an alumnus is asking. Please tell us, who do you see as your team members as the vice rectors? You have certainly thought about it. You have made plans with them. Let's start with Jaak Aaviksoo. If you are re-elected, among your vice rectors, will there be changes? Well, all team members know that we are a team for 5 years, and then a new page is turned. So then you take it from there. So if the board trusts me with the tasks, of course, I will have to put that team together. I think promising that everything would stay exactly as it is would be a little bit rushing it, but certainly not everything will be changed. Jarek Kornetski, who would be in your team? Hendrik Voll is someone I value very highly. I have talked with him, and he would certainly continue in my team. And then we have 2 technical engineers who are asking for a third person who would be with an IT background or a natural sciences background. So that vice rector would have a different background on my team. And of course, people are not. People shouldn't be changed for no reason. The more we change people, the more time it will take to get going. So I want to start hit the ground running. Tiitland, will you be bringing in someone or use the existing people? Of course, those who are already here. In my team, in the interest of continuity, at least one vice rector will have to continue. As far as I see it, Hendrik Voll should be the person. When it comes to the vice rector for research, I wouldn't go far. I have a great colleague Jarek here, who we have basically cheated off each other's visions and platforms, perhaps. So I would offer the position to Jarek, and third or fourth vice rector, I would leave that open at this point. I think that requires further discussion. But I would seriously also consider gender equality and gender balance, because my experience so far has shown that it's not just good on paper, it is actually good. And now it's time for questions from the journalists. Martin Ehala is the first journalist. He is from the daily Postimees. So Martin, now it's up to you. Who you ask? Thank you for a good debate. Thank you for the occasion to comment on it. Over the past week, I have spoken with a lot of the professors from different areas in TalTech and asked about the development of the past years and what the future might be like. And some say that the working environment is not the best in TalTech. And several have left because of the bad working environment at the university. But nobody wanted to go on record with the actual problems that they've had. The interpreter apologizes, the audio isn't the clearest. So from these conversations, I've gleaned that the working environment is a bit destructive. They did mention indeed that the reforms caused problems and bad feelings. Well, my question is quite direct.
Kas te arvate, et see õhkkonna
What do you think?
parandamine on
Developing the working environment, improving it,
rektori
is it
tagasivalimisega või
possible
oleks aeg
if you re-elect the
vahetada?
same rector, or is it time to change rectors? Thank you. That's a question for everybody, the same question. Maybe Jaak Aaviksoo wants to answer first. Yes, indeed, I would be happy to. Yes, of course. I mean, I talk to people from various walks of life in the university, and I haven't heard the criticism this harsh, so they might be scared and just willing to talk to a journalist about it off record. But I would say that feedback and satisfaction surveys give us a quite an adequate picture of the situation, and unit by unit. There are some units that are very happy, and there are some units where satisfaction is a problem. But of course, we can reduce the question to who is the rector, but there are some problems and bottlenecks in other areas as well. So this is something a new rectorate will have to deal with. So we can continue with the same rector. Jarek Kornitski, please. If a top scientist like Kornitski is a candidate for a rector, the only thing that will make them be a candidate is that there is something wrong with academic environment and that there is a management problem, because otherwise you will not get a top scientist to go for the position of rectors, because we have things to do. So in my opinion, we do need some fresh air. Well, it's complicated for me to answer if rector has to be changed to change the described situation. Of course, it all depends on my good colleague Jaak, if he continues. I didn't set up my candidature to oppose him. And it was more because TalTech needs a change, and they need a different style of management. I have described my intentions. I have talked about the leadership models that I will use, and I would really like if during the course of a campus development we could also have a dance place for dancing where it's our socializing, so that we could improve the environment if it needs to be improved. So Priit Hõbemägi, a good colleague from Eesti.
Tervist! Oli väga huvitav diskussioon ja kõigil kandidaatidel on väga tugevaid külgi ja huvitavaid mõtteid ja mulle natukene tundus, et rektor Jaak Aaviksoo sai saate alguses saatejuhi poolt teenimatult palju rappida, aga õnneks muutus asi edenes palju tasakaalustatumaks. Nii et mul ei ole kahtlust, et kõik kandidaadid on väga väärikad ja võimekad. Aga nüüd minu küsimuse juurde, mis on järgmine. Üleminek niinimetatud tasuta kõrgharidusele algas 2013. aastal ning selle viis läbi toonane IRL-i haridus- ja teadusminister Jaak Aaviksoo. Aastaks 2016 pidi olema selge, mis on selle tulemused. Et esimesed siis uue süsteemiga lõpetanud üliõpilased said oma diplomid. 2018. aastal, see on siis 2 aastat pärast seda, kui selgus,
2 years after we saw the results, rectors decided to talk about the question again. Priit Reiska from Tallinn University said that this system is outdated and it obstructs our activities. Mark Kalm from the Academy of Arts said that this was a short-sighted decision. The rector of the University of Life Sciences has said that this has made students lazy. Jaak Aaviksoo, who carried out the reform back in the day, was in agreement that it didn't work out exactly well. But my question now is, how do you see the situation and where do we move on from here? Everybody is unsatisfied with the situation. Let's take that as a point of departure.
Well, first I would like to defend Jaak. He conducted the reform in education, but Jaak is not to blame that we are now in a situation where for the past 4 to 5 years the state funding has been frozen and we're all fighting for it and we're showing the bottlenecks and where it can lead us to. So I agree that in the current form, the reform is outdated in the sense that it's not sustainable. If the state does not guarantee the means to provide high-quality studies to all students as promised. So the Council of Rectors with other stakeholders is fighting for tuition-free education, but it must be adequately funded. So the ball's in the court of the government. Are they going to fund it adequately or not? If they don't fund it adequately, then the question is how to fund it. Provide free, so to say, free education partially. We don't want the old system that we used to have when Jaak was the minister and it was amended. It's a question of discussion and negotiations, but the current situation is not sustainable. And in the end, it's the students who suffer because they have fewer choices. The number of subjects have decreased dramatically in some higher education institutions. And does everybody have access to tuition-free education? Not really, not in this form. Jaak Aaviksoo. Of course, we should not go back to the post-Soviet system where you could buy your way into the university. Some paid and others didn't. Everybody pays and a little or nobody pays. But the old system is not suitable. As to the reform at the time, then the reform worked up until it was meant to work till 2016. In 2013, 14, 15 and 16, the funding of Estonian higher education was the highest it's ever been. And when funding as a political decision was frozen, well, if you don't feed your horse, then it will not be able to carry the load, however good the horse. So we have a political problem. If they don't want to continue with tuition-free education, then they need to find something else. And this is a political challenge. It's not an issue of the universities. Jarek Korniski. I am so young, I can't remember how the reforms were carried out specifically, but I do agree with the previous speakers that it's not an issue for the university to resolve, but for the state. At Helsinki University of Technology, I received a very good level education free of charge, and free education is available in Nordic universities still, and the wealthy societies are able to maintain it. If Estonia doesn't make it, and plus we're entering a recession, which is not going to be easy, then we need to seek solutions. But let's try to maintain the Nordic approach. Let's work on the content of university education more. Let's make sure that the specialties correspond to the demand and that there's political will to maintain the Nordic welfare society model. And Neeme Korv from Äripäev is our third colleague. Good afternoon. From Vana-Lõuna Street, Äripäev editorial office. Thank you to the candidates for the debate. I believe that we are all much wiser for it. The election committee is not going to have an easy choice. All candidates have their strengths. I don't have time to speak about everything, but if I were to highlight something, then the reputation of the university from the beginning of the debate, I really liked how the candidates approached it, the international rating and PhD studies. It seems to me that attitudes in university and society have changed. Earlier, people thought that reputation is born in itself, or it's of no substance, then now there's actually focus on it. But my question applies to something else. President Kaljulaid in Äripäev radio gave an interview in the morning regarding the economy, and she also spoke about how we should move towards carbon neutrality. And her message was that the state should not tempt it with public funds alone, but to establish an environment that facilitates innovation and guarantees GDP growth. Climate issues have been in focus at all recent economic conferences that I've attended or watched. And my question is, how can TalTech help entrepreneurs? And which changes do you foresee in the curricula with this in mind? Jarek. As a representative of engineering and construction, civil engineering, I'm probably the right person to answer this. TalTech, in order to resolve the issue, well, the state cannot do it alone, the companies can't do it alone. But in a small country, the cooperation between public sector and businesses is the weapon that we have at our disposal, and we are able to be dynamic. If the university provides the competence and if the know-how is developed as currently planned, how to fix up all Estonian homes in the next 30 years, how to renovate them and overhaul them. The plan has been composed, it's been funded, 100 million is allocated, and that's what we need to do in other areas as well. Businesses offer something up, ministries and universities, and this brings about national programs, and the state maybe provides some grants as well and support. So it's the public and private sector cooperation with universities. In a small, dynamic, smart country, we can do most with such an approach. Tiitland. Earlier I said something quite randomly, but I was inspired by it, that maybe TalTech can generate and lead circular economy ideas. There's a great campus here, we can develop a green campus, be it sheep, mowing the lawn, or robot lawnmowers, using solar panels for energy, where TalTech researchers can test productivity. For example, there are lots of things that can be done. I'm not going to reiterate what I said already, but Green Deal, circular economy is one of the main outputs of the Green Deal, so we focus on that. Jakob, there's a lot we can do. We can develop the campus, but the specific strength of TalTech is in technological competence. If we don't have that, we don't add value. Everybody wants to build nice campuses and buildings and get the technologies from somewhere, but we need to have specific competences. Hopefully, the best, some of the best in the world, and Professor Konitsky is a good example with near zero buildings. We have transportation competence to organize logistics in an energy efficient way. It's born through top-level academic competence. Electric vehicles, many other areas where we're academically strong. I'm slightly skeptical that a university would become an ideology institution, that let's get everybody together, have a meeting, and lead a political agenda. We strengthen our competences, and based on competences, we advise all our partners. And this know-how through students is spread in society. Thank you to the journalists for their questions, and thank you to the candidates for the debate that lasted for slightly more than 2 hours. Before we finish the discussions here, one last thing. Statement to the board who will be electing the new rector on the 18th of May. Let's take a look at who are the members. Board is the highest management body of the university, responsible for financial, economic, and asset-related decisions, and also elects the rector. The board has 11 members, 5 appointed by the Senate, 1 by Estonian Academy of Sciences, and 5 by the Minister of Education and Research. And the government signs a regulation for 5 years for the board to come together. The members are Gunnar Okk, Chairman of the Board, Vice President of the Nordic Investment Bank, Maive Rute, Vice President of the Board, Eesti Pank Vice President, Alexela Group Representative, Ardo Kamratov, TalTech Senate appointed member, Tõnis Kanger, former TalTech Dean of Science Organic Synthesis, Professor Robert Kitt, Chairman of the Alumni of TalTech and economic expert Piret Mürk-Dubois, Chairman of the Board of Tallinn Group, Arvo Orm, former TalTech School of Engineering Dean, Tiina Randma-Liiv, TalTech Public Policy Professor, Academician, Mart Saarma, Helsinki University Biotechnology Professor, Academician, Andres Öpik, TalTech Professor Emeritus, Academician. The board elects the rector with 2/3 majority, so 8 members must vote in favor of the winner. The rector will be elected on the 18th of May, and the rector will take office on the 1st of September, will be in office for 5 years, and one person can be the rector for 2 terms in office consecutively at maximum.
Each candidate now has 90 seconds to address the board, going alphabetically. Jaak Aaviksoo, please, the floor is yours. Honorable board, at the last meeting, we looked at TalTech's past 10 years and the past 5 years more specifically. I believe that we got an adequate picture of what the place of TalTech is in Estonian society and what challenges lay ahead. I think we also agree in the fact that TalTech is a good university, maybe even a very good university, and the developments of the past years have strengthened this position. Our biggest output is, of course, the TalTech alumni, who many of you are, and I believe you can adequately assess TalTech's yesterday, today, and tomorrow and make reasonable decisions based on that knowledge. The debates have gotten me to an understanding that to a large part, today's candidates don't have that many differences when it comes to the future of TalTech. I can confirm from my side that the reforms that have been undertaken so far, that have been done in cooperation with the board and the curatory body, have strengthened the university's position. And based on that knowledge, the decision will also strengthen the next 5 years. Honorable board, I think by the fact that I am a candidate, during this candidacy process, I have pointed out some problems in this university, such as the environment and so on, which something I did not point out very strongly in this debate is that TalTech is somewhat marginalized. Other universities have gotten ahead of us. So we are in an unfavorable situation where one university takes over 50% when we're talking about results and financing. And this opposition of universities, it's not good for anybody in Estonia. That's clear. So the board has to also look at the Estonian higher education and scene, the research landscape, and also the situation that is not enriching society. So we need to find solutions. Some things are going very well. Cooperation with businesses is growing, but it needs to be strengthened. I don't want to be negative here, but there are still some very big challenges. And the marginalization of TalTech on the background of all this is something that the board has to solve, so make a smart decision. Thank you. And Tiitlan, please. Thank you. First of all, I would like to turn to my colleagues, co-candidates. Thank you very much for these discussions. We are all working towards the same goal. We want TalTech to develop well and help Estonia develop. I would like to thank students and all workers who organized the debates, who sent questions. And in summary, I would like to summarize 3 main goals for the next 5 years. First, studies. The quality of studies, that needs to be ensured. the effectiveness of graduating and STEM students, increasing the number of those, interdisciplinary and sustainable development. Research and development share has increased. The university is also closely looking at the international property issues. And third, organization. The satisfaction of the personnel and students has to grow. The reputation has to grow, and how do we get there? Through systemic R&D work, through transparent financing. We need to also discuss the governance model used in this university, whether it works. And in conclusion, whoever is the winner, I wish this person the best of luck, because we are working towards the same goals. Thank you, Tiit Land. I wholeheartedly agree with what was last said. Thank you very much to all the candidates for the debate, and first and foremost for these interesting ideas and everything that went along with the candidacy process. On the 18th of May, the new rector will be elected. On the 1st of September, he will take office, and Vivat Academia. Stay well.